New addition to my Spinosaurus tooth necklace. The Mosasaurus tooth. Thinking maybe I'll add another for every season of Camp Cretaceous we get. So a bit of a follow-up to what I said at the end of my review for Season 1. I said that I was quitting Netflix because of the movie Cuties, which I'm sure you've heard of by now. However, since the case regarding the lawsuit against Netflix is ongoing, I decided to give it until a verdict is made. Maybe it will be discovered that those from Netflix who picked it up for distribution really saw it as anti-pedophilia, and because of that they were just oblivious to the lewdness of the poster. From what I hear from those who've taken one for the team and seen it themselves, the intentions of the movie are actually good, but it's just so tone-deaf in how it's filmed that it's essentially doing what it's criticizing. I guess as Dr. Grant would put it.
Some of the worst things imaginable have been done with the best intentions.
So my Netflix account is reactivated for now until a final verdict is reached, and at that point, I'll once again make my decision from there. With that out of the way, let's talk about Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Season 2. It's shortly after the camp fam are left behind on Isla Nublar after the evacuation of Jurassic World. They are now trying to survive on the island while they look for a way to contact help, and before long, someone else shows up on the island, but it's a question of what their intents are. And just like with my review for Season 1, I'm going to be given my complete thoughts, including spoilers, in this one video. A brief recap of what I thought of the first season. It was alright, it had good character moments and fun dinosaur chases, but at times had too much of a cartoonish nature to feel in line with the tone of Jurassic Park. Now this second season, I actually thought was pretty good. Not blow me away fantastic, but a fair step up from Season 1. What's making this show worthwhile is the characters, even more so now because Ben, in his claw-my-ears-off obnoxious form, is no longer here. Still standing as the best characters are Darius and Yasmina. They were my favorite characters from Season 1. After this season, it's official, those two are carrying the show. Honestly, I liked the season most in the first 3 episodes, when it was just them trying to get by on the island, encountering dinosaurs and discovering things about them. That's not to say that it didn't still keep my interest when the main story thread begins, when these eco-terrorists Mitch and Tiff arrive on the island with their silent but deadly bodyguard. I have to ask, how is it they got a big name like Bradley Whitford to be a part of the show as the voice of Mitch, but they couldn't get BD Wong to voice Dr. Wu? Whatever the case, I do like that this season gave us something a little different in terms of villains for the Jurassic franchise. Not that I have a problem with how the villains generally are in the movies, I wouldn't really expect antagonistic heads of companies to be any other way, but I like that Mitch and Tiff aren't these stiff, egotistical corporate stooges, and are instead just this everyday bickering couple hunting dinosaurs. Though before the kids discover what they're really up to, it's implied once in dialogue from Brooklyn that because Mitch is seemingly fascinated with dinosaurs, Darius starts to see him as sort of a father figure, but before that line, it never really came across that way. It certainly doesn't have the emotional pull that Darius's dreams about his dad had in the first season. Now I could go on about how much I hated Ben in Season 1. He was my least favorite character in anything Jurassic Park. Literally all he did was just cry and complain. Now that he's not screaming bloody murder over the side of a beanbag chair, my sentiments toward him went from loathing to virtual indifference. I didn't hate him in this season, just didn't think that much of him. The episode dedicated entirely to how he survived before reuniting with the camp fam was the one episode that didn't really do anything for me. Is this going to be a regular thing with the show? The 5th episode is always my least favorite of the season? It does present how he got braver, but we did already get a hint of that in episode 7 of Season 1, when he had his moment on the monorail switching the tracks. It just didn't have anything necessary for our knowledge that we couldn't have put together ourselves when he rejoins the group. Though seeing a full-grown Bumpy facing off against Toro, or at least what was left of Toro, was pretty cool. I was also amused by that part in the following episode, where Ben tries to intimidate the Jason Statham-like security guy by showing off minor injuries. Leech bite. Gator bite. Now, as I've said, my biggest gripe at the first season was the times when it got a little too cartoony. And while yes, it is a cartoon, it's still meant to be the same universe as the movies, and seeing it as such is a bit much to ask for when it doesn't agree with the tone of the movies. To me, the most vexing example of this was the crazy guy in the party hat. There's really nothing of the sort to speak of in Season 2. I found it to be reasonably consistent with the tone of Jurassic Park, and it worked well as a story within the film universe. The only thing that may have been a little too silly for my taste was the way that the cardboard stand of Brooklyn kept coming back into play. Heck, the first time, when Brooklyn uses it to distract the T-Rex, it doesn't make much sense. That thing is literally still as a statue, so given what we know about the T-Rex's vision, she shouldn't have seen it as living prey. Though during this episode, something that crossed my mind is if Roberta is building a nest, that would have to mean that she's either preparing to look for a mate after escaping her enclosure, or she reproduces asexually, which would give her species an easy path to flourishing on the mainland. ... If I had to pick a favorite episode of this season, it would be Episode 2, The Art of Chill, because of the conflict that ensues when the kids come across the abandoned veterinary compound that still has dinosaurs in cages. It's impossible to watch this episode without thinking about Fallen Kingdom. It kind of elaborates on the moral debate of that movie. So there's this trio of baryonyxes, Limbo, Grim, and Chaos, that are strangely adorable when they cuddle with each other. One of them, Grim I believe, is inside a cage, and Darius and Sammy argue whether they should release her like they do the herbivores. While Darius initially rejects the idea, knowing that it would create another obstacle for their survival, Sammy points out that it's still a living thing, and some responsibility should be taken since it's man-made. In her line, "They didn't ask to be here, but they are." So in a real fun escape sequence, the other two baryonyxes show up for their sister and attack, and the kids release the stegosaurs to give themselves cover. Darius eventually finds it in his heart to free Grim, which does cause them more peril down the line, but it also winds up helping defeat Mitch and Tiff. And while releasing the dinosaurs on an isolated island may be a different conversation than releasing them onto the mainland, I can't help but feel like this could be a microcosm of the bad and quite possibly the good consequences that will come from what Macy did at the end of Fallen Kingdom. In fact, I would argue that some good already came from it, since it stopped Eli Mills from getting away and creating more Indoraptors, which unlike the dinosaurs, would actively hunt humans. It really goes to show that it's not as black and white as a lot of people have made it out to be. So it's those first 3 episodes and the last one that I enjoyed most. Episode 8, Chaos Theory, had the really exciting roundup of the dinosaurs, getting them away from the watering hole, all to the sound of the Jurassic Park theme. Not to mention the satisfying ways that Mitch and Tiff went out, like Tiff thinking that she's escaped only to find that the baryonyx is stowed away onto her boat, which I guess was sort of an oblique reference to how raptors and retroiguanas would escape off the island in the Michael Crichton novel. Honestly though, the most satisfying part of this episode was Roberta, the dominant predator, chasing down the enormous herd of various dinosaurs, an image that reflects that very simple concept that we all had as kids. You know.
All the dinosaurs feared the T-Rex.
When it's all said and done, the biggest weakness of the season is that it doesn't take the overall story of Camp Cretaceous very far. When it ends, the kids are still stranded on the island, and not much has been accomplished beyond them getting a stronger suspicion that Dr. Wu is up to some shady stuff. This is clearly set up for Season 3, which I am really hyped for, as Colin Trevorrow has said that this story will be linked to Jurassic World Dominion, and I have no doubt that it involves Dr. Wu's secrets and what his connection is to Biosyn, and perhaps even Manticore, as well as probably whatever Kenji accidentally thought from the frozen tank in Rumi 750. A lot of people think that it's another hybrid. I don't. Considering the ties that it's said to have to Jurassic World Dominion, I think that it is going to be the Pyroraptor that is heavily rumored to be featured in the upcoming movie. The screeching sound we hear that closes the season does sound like a raptor of some kind, and from what we see of the shape from outside of the tank, it does appear to be somewhat plumy. So yeah, I think it's the Pyroraptor. Since no one else seems to think that, I look forward to seeing if I'm the lone person that gets bragging rights. So all in all, I enjoyed this season. It had more good character scenes, more fun dinosaur chases, and fewer silly moments than Season 1, and therefore I like it a bit more. I just hope that come Season 3, it really feels like the story of Camp Cretaceous is further progressing. That's a wrap, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this review. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop.